What if the sun escaped Mortis? We'll be answering that question on today's Star Wars lore video. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another episode of Star Wars lore. Today we're looking at one of my favorite bits of the Clone Wars, the Mortis arc, and specifically what would have happened had the sun escaped Mortis. For those who don't know, Mortis was the home and prison of the Ones, extraordinarily powerful beings which represented the various aspects of the Force. The sun as the dark side, the daughter, the light, and the father, balance. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka journey and are pulled into Mortis during the Clone Wars. Many have argued that this was a shared vision between the three Jedi, and I'll cover that later, but first I want to talk about what actually happened. So upon landing on Mortis, the trio of Jedi meet the son, the daughter, and the father. The father explains to Anakin that he believes the young Jedi is the chosen one, and that Anakin is the only one who can keep his children in check, ensuring balance within the universe. After a trial and a display of power, this theory seems to be confirmed. The son, however, saw selfish opportunity in Anakin's power, the opportunity to escape his prison and dominate the universe with the dark side of the Force. The son successfully manages to convert Anakin to the dark side by showing him a vision of his future. Anakin, however, has his mind wiped by the father, and before the son is able to escape, is killed by a combined effort of the father and Anakin. With the prior death of the daughter, this leaves the Ones completely wiped out. However, this almost resulted in calamity for not only Anakin, but the Star Wars galaxy as a whole. Had Anakin escaped Mortis with the sun, I don't think there's a whole lot that could have stopped them. But what exactly would have happened? This is actually dealt with in issue 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars magazine. In that, we get a pretty fun article called "What If the Father Never Rescued Anakin from the Dark Side?" Of course, there's nothing canon about this. It falls under the Star Wars Infinities brand, but it's still pretty fun. So there's 5 specific points which I'd like to read to you guys and talk about. Turning point. Having turned Anakin to the dark side by showing him a vision of his future, the son cements his position on Mortis by retrieving the blade that killed his sister and slaying his father with it. Mortis, already overrun by the dark side, begins to fall further into ruin and despair. Loose ends. Twisted by the visions of his future self, Anakin, overcame by grief, rage, and a new sense of purpose. All he cares about is returning to the galaxy and tying up the loose ends who refuse to bow to his whims. Loose ends like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. In the cave of the dark side, with lava all around, Anakin casually disarms and abandons his former master to the fiery depths. At the ship, Ahsoka is not quick or quiet enough to escape his flashing blade. So this is almost what happens in Ghosts of Mortis, except instead of Anakin disabling Obi-Wan, it's the son. Obi-Wan then warns Ahsoka that Anakin's on his way. She disables the ship and is able to escape. This leads to the confrontation with the father, Anakin's return to the light side, and the killing of the son. So I think it's fairly clear that with only a slight change, Anakin and the son may have actually been able to escape Mortis. Back to reality. It doesn't take long for Anakin to fix the ship now that he is freed of distractions. Soon he and the son, tagging along back to the physical universe, are headed deep into the heart of the galaxy, with only one thing on their minds: order. True order born of conquest and fire. Only when Anakin is the undisputed ruler of the galaxy will either of them know peace. I think this fits too. This is exactly what the son and Anakin talk about after the visions of the future. They discuss destroying the future emperor, maintaining peace through sheer power and subjugation, almost in a Dark Empire style, and of course ruling all. The next point, however, gets a little weird. Yoda and Sidious united. Anakin and the son's first stop is Coruscant. Yoda and Darth Sidious can both feel their unstoppable malevolence approaching in the Force, and for the first time in an age, the Sith Lord feels fear. The Jedi Master too knows that Anakin is a challenge that must be met and conquered quickly, or he risks losing everything. The unlikely pair meet Anakin and the son on a landing platform, all pretenses dropped. Combat is engaged, Force lightning flickers everywhere, and blades crimson, green, and blue flash in the Coruscant rain. But Anakin, imbued with the very essence of the dark side, is too powerful for these masters of good and evil. he strikes them down and grows even more powerful than before. Jet black clouds swirl the skies and refuse to clear, and Coruscant is plunged into eternal night. Is this really Yoda and Sidious working together, would be my question, or do they both just get summoned by the Force to meet up against this great singular power? I think probably the latter, and if they had managed to defeat Anakin, they probably would have turned on each other. I do kind of like this idea. This is again even tying further to the idea of a dark empire. Anakin is so evil that he's affecting the weather on Coruscant and has really sort of evolved to the next level of power. And I do truly believe that Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One would have been unstoppable had he fully embraced the dark side of the Force. But even as Darth Vader, he never does that. And really, not many in Star Wars do that. Emperor Palpatine is probably the best example of someone completely evil, and he acts exactly like Anakin does here. Which, interestingly enough, brings us to the final point, Emperor Skywalker. Without pausing for a breath, Anakin stalks through the Senate, which is in session. With a crushing display of inhuman power, he casts down whole swaths of floating senatorial pods and levitates himself onto the central dais, where he declares himself the ruler of a new galactic empire. The sun watches and is pleased. Order will be his forever. So in this scenario, Anakin is basically the perfect Darkside user and really the perfect Sith. I think it's important that we talk about what the sun really is. Earlier I mentioned that there's some discussion whether the trip to Mortis is real or not. Personally, I believe it wasn't, and I think this Infinity story almost goes with that as well. Yes, the sun is spoken of as physically escaping Mortis, but if you pay attention, all he really does is watch things. He never helps Anakin fight, he's really just on the sidelines. I think this represents that the sun is really just the dark side of the Force and isn't something that actually physically exists. Mortis was a conduit for the Force, and I think represented the future of Anakin Skywalker. He could have accepted the light, although he never really had the chance to. He could have fully accepted the dark, or dedicated himself to maintaining balance, as is the supposed role of the Chosen One. However, he leaves Mortis without the decision ever being made, at least in canon. In this story, he fully embraces the dark side, and as the Chosen One again, seems to eliminate the possibility of light from the galaxy. But do you think that's what would have happened? Was the sun real? Could he physically escape Mortis, or does it represent Anakin allowing the dark side to take over? I think it's interesting that even in Mortis, it's fear which first turns Anakin, and then the sun escaping seems to just further propagate that change. But I want to hear what you think. Let me know down in the comment section, and make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.